So see, if we are all here in a room, it seems, I'm just pointing that it seems that it's because we are all people here looking for something. That means we are separate entities seemingly trying to get something out of some situation. Okay? That's what we are doing all the time. I mean, we want to, we are hungry, we want to buy a cake, we go to the bakery. We, as separate individuals, we like to get something fixed, something that makes us more peaceful, more happy, more balanced, and then we just move into action. A subject will do perform some action and get some result at the end. So it seems that the whole situation here is about the same. We are together as people, let's say, trying to get something. Otherwise you would not be here. You will be at the beach. Well, there's no beach in Tiruvannamalai. But you would be maybe doing something maybe more funny and more interesting, or I don't know. So if all of us were here, it's because there's something, there's some motivation. Okay? So here, that's my first exploration, is about the motivation. I'm going to give you a proposition, and then you look at it, and you try to figure out if it makes sense to you. My first proposition, it would be about the motivation. If I say, this message is not applicable, is not relevant to any of us. So the possibility is to ask questions. We are seekers with some answers already, but we want more answers. More answers meaning there's a grabbing mechanism that tries to accumulate, that tries to appropriate some knowledge. And the feeling is that, oh, it makes sense, because when I go to the bakery to get my cake, I get some fulfillment. And so as an entity, I can do some action to get some results. Okay? So this must apply to here, to these meetings, to these satsangs. I think that's exactly where we go wrong, where it's not applicable. It's not a possibility. It's not a possibility because it's a totally different mechanism. It doesn't apply to the usual way of dealing with life. It has to go backwards. When I say it has, I'm just describing a possibility here. I'm not imposing anything on anybody. I'm just trying to describe what could happen if understood deeply, surely beyond or before the mind, another possibility. What happens here if we try to deal with this information as a normal way of life, as something to get, we immediately recreate the subject, the separate entity that is going to get something, and that's going to get maybe something that's as amazing as dissolving the entity at the end, because that's part of the message. But actually the reality is that by entering into this zone, into this sharing with that in mind, with that approach, we immediately, before anything happens, create division. There is immediately a dividing factor that's there in the room. I, as a separate entity, am trying to get something. So we have a situation where we have been told many times from different angles, from different with different techniques, that ultimately we don't exist as a separate entity, and that actually life is happening by itself, and blah 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 blah, and all that, which is in some ways which is true. But to whom is it addressed? That's the real question. Are we listening to the message from the separation? Or is there an intuition, a possibility, a quality that recognizes right now that the listening doesn't belong to us? There is listening, but who is really listening? Is it the seeker? Is it the person that came into the room? Is it the story? Is it an object that is actually suddenly becoming the subject? When I'm talking about an object, we all, I'm sure here in this room, have been through this this first inquiry, the self-inquiry that's proposed here in Tiruvannamalai, and trying to figure out what I am and what I am not, the part that is the identification, the body, the emotions, the mind, if there's a mind. So we have been through a lot of work, and still, when we meet, when we go to such a meeting, we come into the meeting as a separate entity. How is it possible?
To experience duality.
Sorry?
To experience duality.
To experience duality?
Because the oneness cannot know himself.
Yes.
Until he creates the duality.
Mm-hmm.
He creates himself this imaginary universe who we call life. But to experience himself, through so many atoms or particles. We are particles in the body of the God.
Is it really the case?
I don't know.
It's a nice story, actually.
Yes.
This listening, this capacity of, I mean, I could use the word which is the closest one, but I'm not stuck to that. It's this capacity of awareness. Okay? This capacity that there is something instead of nothing. Beingness, there is. Okay? This very simple possibility. Is it located within the room here? Where is it? Where is the separation? Where is the part? Where is the particle? Can you show me somewhere? When each of us, we enter this room to sit here, is it actually our experience? Or within what we are, the essence, non-localized, not in time, not in space, suddenly the room appeared? Say it again?
Say it again.
Okay. Our usual reading of life. Huh? I'm not saying the experience, because it's not even the experience, it's the reading. Our usual reading of life is that I am Didier here. I was outside the room, I came into the room, I sat here. Some other people came here into the room and sat around. Okay? That's the usual reading. It makes sense in the story. And that's very practical. Because if I ask for some water, you're not going to get it, I'm going to get it, because we know the rules of the game. But if it's just a game, if it's just a practicality, if it's just a possibility of, as you said, creating something out of nothing, creating a story, creating a beautiful happening, are we still obliged to use this as the absolute reference, or there is this other possibility that's given here, is that let's say I'm talking for myself, but do the same exercise for yourself. Right? Try to visualize that. I, as existence, presence, awareness, suddenly became aware of a room. I mean, it was aware of the rickshaw before, aware of the path, the door, etc. But it's something that unfolded within what I am. And within what I am, as what I am, seemingly people came around and started dancing together with words. It could be any kind of dance. But things were happening. A story is told right now. And if this story that is happening right now is read in a way that keeps the story as a story, the interest is not lost. The interest is on the opposite. It's totally amazing. It's an amazing story. But do I need, as I am, awareness, to be lost at a specific place, specific position within this story? Am I within the story, or the story is within me? That's the question. So is it somebody, a seeker who entered the room to find some answers and to get something for him, for her, and to get fixed a bit further in life with a bit of information, or is there a capacity that's always there? Always, always, always. And within that, a story of a seeker pops up. And if we are talking here, it's not a seeker. The seeker is just an object. It's just a part of the landscape. It's a specific shape and form. It's a specific happening, but the seeker cannot know anything. The seeker has no awareness. The seeker is an object.
The seeker is an object?
Yes.
What kind of object?
This kind. This kind. This kind. The answer, what I'm pointing at, is that the answer of this question, who am I, doesn't point to anything specifically in this room.
When you say that we have the opportunity here, you mean here in Satsang?
Well, yes, here in Satsang.
And why is this different as on the street?
There are an invitation everywhere. It's not limited to Satsang, it's the whole life is inviting. The only thing is that what happens is when you go to the bakery and you buy bread, they are going to say, to address with your name, with your status. There is a transaction between two parts, and that will be reminding and reinforcing the reading of life as two parts that are communicating together. But actually there is just one single happening. There is within who you really are, seemingly parts that are communicating, that are dancing together, and the bread getting exchanged within that. And it's very much a satsang, if you can read it that way. The thing is that being at the bakery will reinforce your feeling of being an Emilia here on one side of the story, and being the baker on the other side of the story, and an exchange happening. And if you come to any satsang with this intention, this dynamic, this desire to, as an individual, get the message, the non-dual message, you're going to fail again and again and again and again, because what's happening is it's just reinforcing the initial assumption that what is coming to the satsang is separate and needs to be fixed, needs to be repaired, needs to be fulfilled, needs to merge with the big one. And this is just a dream, it's an hallucination.
Yeah, the seeker, we think that coming to satsang, it's not necessarily to get something, it's something different, another energy or something happening there.
Sure, sure. So it's not for the answer, because we can go all over all the questions and try to give answers, which will be just the other side of the question. It's going to be objects. The answer is going to be having a beginning and an end, and maybe in some ways answer the question. And if the question is an hallucination, it might be dissolving the question. That means the question might not be there anymore because it doesn't relate to anything actually real. But still, we are in an exercise of doing something for our own good as a separate being.
But it's not about being myself. It has nothing to do with being in the heart or following one's flow. Or because it can be very misleading actually when you say to someone you should follow your flow. How, as Ragi said, how can you not follow your flow? There's only the flow.
There's only the flow.
And
But the misleading part, if I may, would be to follow my flow. To want to believe that, to believe this story, that actually there is something different happening here, there is a specific purpose, and the purpose is applied to a specific somebody. The flow is happening by itself, it doesn't need to be labeled with the my, me, etc. It's not my progress as a separate entity, because this separate entity is a supposition at the beginning of the journey that is at some point realized to be a fiction. So how can a fiction have a purpose or have a specific unfolding? It's just life unfolding in all its beauty that includes every aspect of it.
But some people say, for instance, that it's about being in her heart, in the heart.
It's funny because I spoke about that with Cecilia yesterday, and I understand the terminology, but it could be quite misleading. Because clearly the heart is going to be a kind of center. And this center, if it's not really totally clear what are we talking about, is going to be located somewhere inside the body. And then the body is becoming special, and then the other one is less special, and the other one is less special, and then we are back into the hallucination, actually.
Exactly.
So the matter of this story, it's a story we have here, it's a story. We could put it in a book, we could put it in a movie, there's many ways to pack it up. It seems to unfold in time and space. It's just like a movie, it's not different, it's all together, it unfolds. And this story is made out of a specific matter, which is not different from myself.
Cuanto más olvido,
the more
más
I
recuerdo.
the more I remember.
The more
I forget, the more I remember.
The more I forget my story of separation, the more I remember who I am, really. Yes. And I totally agree with the term. My experience, let's talk about that, is the experience of forgetfulness. I forgot to play the human being.
Ya hace tiempo que dejé de buscar.
It's a long time since I stopped seeking.
Estoy porque no se me ha perdido nada.
Because I haven't lost anything.
Exactly.
Sentir,
Yes.
Feel,
integrar.
Yes.
integrate.
Yes.
So God is an object.
Say it again.
God is an object.
Well, God is an object if it's perceived to be outside ourselves, actually. Yes. Then God is part. If we use the traditional way of using the word God, which is an outer, transcendent
We are part of God.
No, we are not part of God, because as a part you don't exist. We are not part of God. This is exactly why saying that you're shooting in your own foot, your own divine foot, not this one. Saying we are part of God is the beginning of the separation, because there are other parts. A possibility, which I'm proposing here, actually, it's not different, is to relax, to breathe, and to first not take this search that seriously, because the seriousness is the seriousness of the seeker. I want to be the warrior of light, I want to get something, I want to gain something. So already there you create some entity. So I'm talking about a game. It's a game. And the game is to try to figure out if you allow yourself right now to see yourself not as a part of this world, but as the world as it is, just to allow that to happen. It's a game. Nothing bad is going to happen. It's a game. And to let it happen. And to maybe, to see that not only it's a possibility, not only doesn't remove anything, not only doesn't make yourself as whoever you are, as Didier, dysfunctional, but actually everything is rolling as it was before. Because in reality nothing changes. Because it's not that you had control and you're going to lose the control. The one that thinks or that believes having a control doesn't exist in the first place. So nothing happens to nobody. So life goes on. But with the game, with this possibility of game, you have an approach that is much more light and much more playful, which bypasses all the resistance of the mind, all the fears, all the trauma to be solved. So the bypass I'm proposing, and it's not a technique, because I mean it could be a technique. We could try things together, but it's to take things less seriously, play a game, allow a different vision to take over your life, and see for yourself if your life is getting messy or is getting in a weird situation, or, as I discovered myself, in the first assessment, I would say, well, actually, with this possibility, nothing changes. Life goes on. Okay? And as the second assessment, over time, I would say that some of the stories inside life dropped away. Ragi, Ramesh and Ragi is giving the message of stuff that cannot happen anymore. Guilt, shame, envy, expectation, worries. And it's true, these things are gone. But they are not gone because I, as a separate entity, won the battle against, I don't know, some evil forces and all that. It's nothing to do with that. If a process that is this misidentification goes away as a game, as a playful move, what's left is life. There's only there's nothing else. The repetition is interesting. It's not something that is. Ramesh was saying the same concepts again and again and again and again at Vitam and Eternam. Now we have Roger Castillo using the same tools. He calls that the tapping until the clay breaks, and we have a lot of proof in the pudding that this repetition has some benefits, okay? But the thing is that what I really feel about the repetition is that instead of being a repetition, it becomes a memory of something, a recognition. So it's like a photocopy of the actual directly recognizing the truth. Okay, so And then, yeah, I have to go on with that. So you keep on, and it becomes, instead of being an active process that is, now I recognize, it becomes a memory of this recognition. And it's fading away, it's very subtle. The photocopy is a good photocopy, but it's not the actual thing. So it can become like a mantra, which in this case loses power. It's a hypnotism. So the only possibility of repetition to be actual would be to do, let's say this exercise we did with the finger. The second time you're going to do it is going to come already from memory. And the third time it's going to be like, okay, I have to do it. Okay, I'm doing it. This is every single time has to be the first time.
Do you think it can help replace old memories, like bad memories?
Well, it's clearly, Ramesh was clearly saying everything we say is a concept. So basically you have any concept, bad, good, I don't care. But then whatever is being said is a kind of reprogramming with concepts, which needs to be effective and needs to have a certain strength, certain level of quality. And then what is proposed here is that instead of building an answer from a question, is that the question and the answer both disappear and leave the total space for something else to happen. It's not about having all the answer to everything. I don't have the answer. I don't know anything about anything actually. This is the plan of the mind. I'm going to get it all, and after I'm gone. It's great. I have the plan, but it's an hallucination. Is that it's like you're in a car and you're accelerating and you're braking at the same time. You're not moving actually. That's your sentence. I'm explaining what it is.
Acceptance is...
What I'm saying is that I am not accepting the part that needs to accept or to not to accept doesn't exist. It's not that it doesn't exist anymore, it never existed, and it's the case for all of us, whether it's recognized or not. So the acceptance part is a description of what is already happening for all of us. Whether it seems to be somebody accepting or somebody not accepting. That's a story that comes much later. In reality, life equal acceptance of what is, or what acceptance of what is the engine of life. There is no possibility of somebody accepting or not accepting. So it's not I am not accepting life, but the fact that this exists is already accepted. At the same time, it's the only way it can exist. So there is no separation between something and the fact of accepting it. There is no gap. It's together. In pragmatism, in that sense, yes, no bullshit actually, no stories. No concept, no big theory about life. I have no theory about life. It's a practical matter, actually. It's right now, when the theory has gone, what remains? That's all. It's deeply alive, deeply direct. There is no, and I can try to convey with words, and immediately it seems like these words are such bullshit. But that's how far I can go actually. If you realize that this initial impulse that I'm doing something for me might be the initial conflict actually, then you don't even need to fix that because there will be no way you could fix that than to see it. Okay? And then what might happen, I'm just describing here, it's not prescribing, I'm describing something, is that you might be on the path of your sadhana that is actually for the sake of the truth and not for the sake of yourself. Which is very different. Which is utterly different. Because for the sake of yourself, you're going to build stuff that makes interest for you as a separate entity. That means you're going to grow and to create more boundaries, even if they are bigger or are merging with the universe. It's still a boundary. But if intuitively there is this feeling, this intuition, it's an intuition, that this movement is the movement of separation, it might drop by itself. And it doesn't prevent to do sadhana, exercise, meditation, finger pointing, whatever you want. But it's a very different zone then. It's for the sake of the discovery, not to get anything. The first thing, okay, now that I said that, we can go a bit deeper. And the first thing that's going to be shocking is that nobody gets it. Nobody gets awakened and like whatever. This is bullshit. It doesn't exist. This is what we're talking is are objects of awareness, as awareness. So to say that somebody got it, it's applying a subject where there is only object. And this part, so you can always say yes, but if you start with a wrong assumption, you will have a wrong conclusion at the end. She cannot turn the knob anymore. So what might happen? I'm going to describe it very simply. Right? It's again very simple. A very young child with starting having all this identification with a name, with a form, a specific, I can control my hand, I can do this. He's growing, he's getting more independent, more separated. We are clear with that. And then suddenly there is this information that comes. What's going to happen is that the actual story that's going to happen is that life itself, the source, what we really are, would be forgetting itself, like the normal process for all these different point of view. I call them point of view, which are the human beings, and then would be at some point remembering the actual only existence that there is. And it's not the child will be. I didn't remember anything as Didier. Suddenly, what happened, in my case it was suddenly, is that for years I believed I was Didier, locked inside the head, inside the body, in control of my future, my movements and all that. And suddenly, what happened is that I realized that I was never, ever, ever Didier, that I was life, suddenly recognizing itself directly. And since this belief in Didier was an hallucination, was like the mirage, the shape is still there, the seemingly separation is still there, the play of life is still there, but what recognized this is not Didier. I didn't recognize anything.